Hey everyone, it is Quickened, and I want to start this off with, this is a video, I'm gonna get into it. This is a video that, I've always put off making, and I kind of thought I could get away with not making it forever, and I got away with it for, a year, I guess, but lately, I've been trying really hard to get back into my channel and make really good content and go to YouTube classes and, work with the videographer and stuff like that. But everything I keep coming back to is, everything I never said and everything I tried to get away with not explaining and, all the questions that people ask me that I just not ignored but thought, it was in my best interest to not answer them. I want to have a conversation with you guys today. And normally, whenever I have something I want to talk about, I'll, hide it inside of a live stream. And that way I'm okay, only people who, are really interested in my content, who aren't, accidentally falling onto my channel. I'll hide stuff like that in my live streams because I know that the people watching it are supportive, good subscribers who aren't going to be really critical of me, and I wanted to protect myself. But I'm putting this as a video, and I'm pretty nervous about that. But every night I come back to the same thoughts, and it's what am I doing? So I sprayed my bangs with water before I started this because I have a natural cowlick right here that I've been kind of into. So I'm not really sweaty. I'm actually pretty cold. And I want to make all Halloween content this week, so this kind of interrupts the flow, but I can't stress it to you guys enough that I keep coming back to this, and it seems unfair, but I'll explain everything, and I'll explain my thoughts, and everything like that. So I think where a lot of the questions and stuff all started kind of surrounds my breakup. And I'm sorry if you just subscribed, watch my Ink magazine thing and you're what is she talking about? 2 years ago, or a year ago at this point, 2 years ago, I've been with my boyfriend for a while now. I think we called it official maybe in 2014, 2013, I think. And we were living with his parents for about 2 years, and then I moved out. And I got my own apartment. And a lot of that, I have a video all about why I moved out, and I deleted it because I just thought it was so cruel. And I really felt like I jumped the gun posting it, and I felt like I shouldn't have said a lot of the things I said because, I was really in a moment of distress. And I'm old enough to move out and old enough to do my own things, but I stayed living there to be with my boyfriend. And, I could have A, waited it out, which I'm capable of, or B, moved out, and I did. But one thing I never told you guys was I only moved 1 block away. I live in Philadelphia, so the city is on a grid. I literally moved 1 block away. Obviously, I couldn't share that information online because you should never tell anyone where you live. You should not geotag your home. And I think a lot of people were assuming because I moved out of that home that John and I were broken up. And it was really hard to diffuse a lot of the speculation and stuff online because we were really working through things, and it was a really difficult time and a really transitional period in our lives. And for, the last 5 years we had been working on this home, working on it together, but for the majority John was working on it. And we had obviously I didn't have a very equal financial contribution to it, but I tried to contribute when I could. John also, would get free things from work, etc., but I tried to contribute a lot. But in no way was it ever 50-50, but, help when I could. I never felt entitled to this home, and honestly that was a good thing. If it would have been 50-50, I don't think it would have allowed me to explore moving out. And it was the first time I ever lived by myself, but I swear it was 1 block away. I talk about in my like apartment finding video that I wanted to live within a support system, and that's what I was talking about. So a lot of this introduces my friend Ryan. So Ryan lived across the street from the apartment that I ended up renting. And obviously, if he only lived 1 block from us, we always knew him. You guys didn't always know him, but in my life, I like to protect different aspects of my private life, and I encourage everyone to do the same. Taking a bunch of pictures of my neighbor and stuff like that seemed a little... He just was more of a elusive person. Like, didn't really have an Instagram. So, if you felt like all of a sudden, where did he come from? He's always been here. So, I don't want to get off track, but John and I got the apartment, I believe, in March. And then John and I kind of officially broke up, I want to say in June. So it was the end of May that I quit my job and everything because like every day it seemed like there was just so many stressors in our relationship. Like him coming over and spending the night at my apartment like equally, and different stressors like that, and me seeing him less, and like him saying that my job stressed me out so much that was all I talked about. And I can definitely like, not only was I so bad about it, but I like heard myself talking about how much I hated my job and how much my job affected me, and I heard myself talking about it so much and I hated it. So I can't even imagine. He was like, all Amanda talks about is how much she hates her job. And at the same exact time, I was going through like a medical thing, and I didn't want to be public about that either because it's such a thing where if we're doing anything in our lives, we want to share it. We're going to the dentist, we're buying furniture, like these different things. And me, like, I was going to the clinic like every day getting tests done, and I don't have health insurance, so I was at the free clinic for hours, like waiting in line. Like it was dead, like dead up. Like to the people who don't have health insurance or access to like medical treatment, like, I don't know, like that episode of 30 Days with Morgan Spurlock is absolutely dead on. Like you get to the clinic at 7 a.m. and you wait in line, and there are people who get there at 5 a.m. so that they're first in line. Anyway, so like I was getting these treatments done, and whenever anything happens, they're always like, are you under a lot of stress? Stress could be like exaggerating and all this stuff, like all of your symptoms, and it's just so frustrating. I had to get all these tests done, and then I had to go to a hospital because the clinic didn't have like an x-ray and like an ultrasound and all this stuff so they could see my insides. And it wasn't ultrasound like pregnancy, like it did have to do with like my reproductive system. So that was like pretty sad, and I felt really alone because I couldn't share it online. And I know how that sounds, but at the same time I was also quitting my job, so I was losing a huge part of my support system, which was like the shampoo girls at my other job. Amongst all of this, I was posting YouTube videos and trying to be really positive about my apartment. And my YouTube manager even told me, like, your apartment series is one of the most successful videos you've ever posted on your Instagram, on your YouTube channel. And to me, like, I know the behind the scenes, and it's almost like, it's almost like so strange because I, at the same time, was going through so much stuff, and then I would put on the camera and just, like, be able to go to this world where I was decorating my apartment, and I thought I was doing the right thing, and I was on the right path, and quitting my job, putting it behind me, so John and I could have this better life where I would almost be in, like, this rehabilitation of, like, my mental state where I was in control of everything. I was in control of the rent and what the apartment looked like and my health and like my destiny and my videos and everything like that. So once I quit my job, like once I put my 2 weeks in, I came home to my street, and John and Ryan were outside like drinking beers, and I came up to him and I was just like, you know, I quit my job. Like, I did it. Why don't you walk me up to my apartment? And that's when John was like, he was like being pretty weird. He was like, I don't know if I want to see Ethan. And I was like, okay. And then, you know, like 2 days later, I got a phone call from him. And he was like, you know, I have a hard time like hanging out with my friends and like contributing to the conversations and stuff like that. I'm just like really depressed, and like I feel like I can't go out and hang out with my friends unless like I have a drink, and then all of a sudden like I'm not so uptight and I'm not so nervous around people. And like I've told you guys before that he has like a hard time sometimes socially, like if a Target is really busy, like he doesn't really want to be there and stuff like that. Like little things like that. My brother's the same way. And I was just like, you know, what are you really trying to tell me? And I think that's the first time we talked about breaking up. And the next day we had plans together with my biological uncle. So that was a big deal to me because I don't really see my dad's side of the family almost ever. And it was like, if we're breaking up, just please like give me one more day. So we went to the flea market with my uncle, and like my uncle's friends were there and everything like that, and John was like really good about it. But it was like that episode of Sex and the City where Charlotte is getting her apartment photographed, and her and her husband are separated, but he comes for the photographs, and that's like important to her, but really they're broken up. Like it was that, and it was devastating. So after that, you know, we still talked, but it was like faint and everything like that, and I wasn't public about this online at all. So when I quit my job, like one of the girls from work still hung out with me, and then that like really came to like a hard stop, which was pretty sad for me, you know. And I was like, it's because I'm depressed, like it's because I'm sad, like who the fuck would want to spend time with me? And like Ryan did. And it was everything. He lived across the street, so when I woke up in the morning to like go to my P.O. box and get my coffee, like I would see him. And we have always known each other like the last 5 years. Like he drove John and I on to like our first date because he like wanted to like drive John's truck, but drove us there. Like Ryan would drop me off at the Swan Boat rental. Like Ryan's been in my life for a really long time, but never like in this emotional way. Ryan like helped me move into the apartment. When I had that mold problem, Ryan came and checked it out. Like it was really cool. So like if I was watching something like on Hulu and like he didn't have it, he would come over. He watched like, I don't watch Game of Thrones, so he would come over and watch it on my TV while I was like editing in a different room. It was like really nice. It was like everything I needed. I love like cohabitating a space. And he said like my apartment was girly and cozy. It was really good. But it was also really sad. You know, I felt like John and I's relationship wasn't over, but Ryan was John's friend. Like I had a hard time talking about that. So it was almost this like make-believe world where we didn't talk about like what I was going through and like whatever relationships problems he was going through. Like we just kind of didn't talk about it. And then, like, it was, like, one night, I remember, I think I was, like, going, it's fucked up, this is, like, my marker, but I was going to, like, this police brutality protest, I believe, and I came outside of my apartment and went down the stairs, and John was outside. And I was like, oh my god, like, you know, you like see someone you don't mean to see or something like that. Like, you open the door on someone in the bathroom, you're like, shit. I like saw John and went a different way. And in my mind I was like, oh, he was probably going to like hang out with Ryan. So I'm at this protest and like there's like an ALF presence there, like the anarchy presence and stuff like that. And I'm running into John's friends. I'm there with like this barista I know who like I think is into me and stuff like that. So there's just like this really weird energy that I'm like, I just saw John, like, do I keep hanging out with this kid who's into me? Like, John's friends are all seeing me. I'm at this police brutality protest. Like, Olive just knocked over the trash can. And I'm also like, these protests can be dangerous. Like, what if something really bad happens? It was a really weird time for me to be having a ton of emotions, I'll just say that. I like excuse myself. We get to City Hall, which is generally the mission of like these big marches anyway, and I'm like, I gotta go. So Ryan calls me and he's like, is everything okay? Like, I saw you see John. Like, Ryan calls me unprompted and he's like, do you want me to pick you up on the dirt bike? And I'm like, yeah. We meet up and I'm just like, I don't want to talk about John, like, anymore. Like, I don't think I'm gonna get through this breakup if I don't, like, stop. So that's what it was. And it was, like, I feel like maybe I, like, cheapened myself there because Ryan was my support system. And I know I'm oversharing, but fast forward and John hits me up and I'm like, hi. He like 2 rings, but like, hi. And he tells me that he drove down my street because he wanted to run into me and he doesn't know what that means. And I'm like, I don't know what that means either, but it's either we move on or we don't. So we like decide to go out to eat and everything like that, and it's so nice to see him. And like little things like that keep happening kind of, and it's just like I don't know what to do. I like cut off that like barista kid. I'm like, we almost held hands. No, I just didn't know what to do. And sometimes you like think, how am I going to move on from this breakup? Maybe I should start hanging out with a new person, you know, instead of like trying to build those blocks that I needed to be human again and be myself again and be a better person, and, you know, be a better person so John and I can work again. Because like I said, when we talked on the phone the day before we broke up, he told me, he's like, I have a lot of problems. And they're not huge problems, but they're problems that, like, if you just fake it and go unsolved, and instead of having conversation, like putting on Netflix every night, like, that shit builds up. I had that poetry reading last summer, and Dana was my +1, and John showed up and like bought a ticket and everything. It was really special. And then he left. Like, he didn't linger and like try to go home with me and shit like that. Like, it was cool. Fast forward to like September, and Ryan and I are like sitting outside of his warehouse, and he's like, so I know we're not talking about John, but John told me that he wants to ask you back out, like he wants to be with you. And he was like, I think you should do it. Like, you deserve to be in a good relationship, and like you deserve to get married and all this stuff. And I just wanted to be like, I loved our fantasy so much of just like, we didn't talk about our problems. Like, we didn't talk about like the overlying thing. And my overlying thing was obviously like John and like what went wrong and what's happening now. And like my coworkers didn't even know that John and I were hanging out again. And then like John and I were seeing each other casually. Like, I would say that. Trying to work on things. Like, he would come over and watch a movie and then go home, like not spend the night. I remember the last time we'd hung out was like a Thursday, and we rented It, like the original one. We watched like the first half, and then John went home and he's like, we'll watch the second half like later. And I was like, this is kind of fun. Like, we're really having a chance to date. We weren't addressing any of our real core problems, but it was nice. That weekend I had Old City Festival. I was doing hair for like a runway show, and I remember like feeling mad that Ryan hadn't texted me yet to be like, how's Old City Fest? Because that Friday I filmed like 5 Friday or something and went to get hoagies and asked Ryan if he wanted any. He said no. I went to his house and knocked on the door, and I was like, I'm not gonna eat all this, like just have some. We don't have to hang out, just like take some of my food. And he was like, no, I'm good, like thanks for thinking of me. And I was like, all right, weirdo. That weekend, like, I don't hear from Ryan talk about Old City Festival, but at the same time I was like, it wasn't that weird, you know? So that Monday it was raining, and I went to the store to buy like a heating pad and my breakfast and stuff. And when I got back to my house, probably like noon or 1, it's when I got a call from John And all he said was, Ryan's gone. And I remember putting on my shoes and being like, he's probably like on the roof, like, hold on. And he was like, no. And I knew, like, you just know. So I ran outside, and it was me, his boss, and his ex-girlfriend had gotten there, Ryan's ex-girlfriend. And, like, obviously, Ryan had died. And I'm not really going to go too deep into that because I think that me sharing this without any context, like sharing Ryan without any context, put a lot of confusion onto my audience and onto you guys, because all of a sudden you were like, who the fuck is this guy? Who is he? Like, what's going on? Is that her boyfriend? Like, what is this? What, he's like older? Like, and I was like, no, Ryan's always been here. And you guys are like, what the fuck? Like, and then like Ryan committed suicide, so it was like this whole other thing, and people are like, what the fuck with suicide? And then all of this, plus John and I, plus my apartment, plus like all the times Ryan and I didn't talk about our problems, and I'm like, am I the last person who talked to him? When I banged on the door to try to give him my sandwich, was I the last person? Like, would I have known? And so many people are going to tell you no. And that's fine. Like, I've coped with, like, Ryan's death, but I think the impact it left on my channel was strange. And I'm really not trying to be selfish here. I'm trying to explain, like, last October, I vlogged the whole thing. And I think that that's really fucked up. And I think I never should have done that. And I think I put you guys in a really weird situation because all of a sudden you were grieving with me, or you were triggered or reminded of your own death, or you had to think about suicide, or you had to think about yourself. And like, I shouldn't have done that. And intermittently with my vlog series last Halloween were positive things. So you guys were put through all of that, and I think that's really unfair. And at the same time, you guys started seeing John. And you were like, what is John doing here? To me, not weird, because John and I were, like, hanging out again. You guys, very weird, because I hadn't shared that with you. And John and I weren't hanging out all of a sudden because Ryan had died. And a lot of people speculated that. And they were like, don't go to John for comfort. And I'm like, well, John's always known Ryan. And they're like, well, don't get back with him because you're sad. And I'm like, well, we were working on things, and it's fucked up now. Because this is crazy, and now we're sharing this trauma. And, you know, you guys are smart and everything, but you have to give me credit too. And, like, I identified the whole situation, and I was like, I don't want John and I to get back together because of this shared trauma. I want us to work on everything, and it's going to be 500 times harder now that we're all working on this too. So obviously I lived across the street, so I was there for every part of this. Ryan's family coming in, them selling his car, the items, the clear out, the grieving girlfriends, like everything. And you, like, if you've been here a really long time, I filmed in a studio space for like 5 episodes, and Ryan had given me that studio space. And I like stole the keys to it. I was like, what? Like, he's been a huge part of my life for a long time. He's like the first vegan person I ever knew. He was a big bike messenger, like a big part of the bike messenger scene, and like a graffiti scene, and like all these different scenes. I offered to put money towards like a funeral or memorial, like all of us did, but he was cremated. It's the cheapest option. And then we had a memorial for him in the park for free, and everyone brought pictures. I wrote like a little speech for him, and like said that in front of everybody. Didn't know how to like use the microphone, but like it was really hard. And it was hard to see all of my friends again in this really weird context where I wasn't John's girlfriend, but I was there. And I wanted to be there, and I belonged there, and Ryan was really one of my best friends. So there was that. And it was really, really weird. And then went home and I turned on the camera and tried to make content. And I think you guys obviously picked up on the fact that, like, it was some really hollow, freaky presentation of myself. And yeah, I mean, you're totally right. And it was unfair for me to not address this stuff. But at the same time, addressing it, I felt like was really inappropriate. And the best thing to do was probably to take like a 2-month break. And I didn't do that because this is my job. And you don't just get to walk away from it. So I was put in a really hard situation where all I can do now is apologize. Because when I look back on it, I'm not sure what I would have done differently. I'm somebody who, you know, I like think with my heart first. And it's definitely not always right. So that's what I did. And I didn't take enough time off work. But we can fast forward. You know, I spent about a month with like Ryan's friends and grieving, and like I'm still grieving, but people who came from out of town or flew in from out of state, the memorial process, then we all celebrated his birthday with like a lantern festival. It was like a lot. And then I like settled back into myself, which was nice. I decided to do Vlogmas, which I kind of quit halfway through because like obviously I wasn't like stable enough to do it. I was going through a lot before Ryan died, and then when he died it was completely amplified because I just felt like I had been wasting my life, and like what made me any different, you know? And that attitude was like a fucking cinder block on my feet and like being thrown into a river. Like I took myself down and I pushed myself into negative thoughts because I didn't feel like it was appropriate to be happy right after my friend died. And I can't tell you the damage that did to my career, to my perspective, to my channel, to my audience, to you guys, because I brought you with me and it's not fair. It was not fair for you to feel these lows with me. I agree that like YouTubers should not always show the happy all day, but I only showed you my misery every day, and that's messed up. And I wish I could take it back or display it differently or add context to the situation, but the whole time I left a lot of you guys in the dark because 1, I was receiving some really fucked up messages that I didn't know how to cope with, and 2, I was seeing John again, and I wasn't necessarily proud. I was really scared. I thought that our breakup was very public and, you know, dirty, and like people were like, good, fuck him, he's ugly and you deserve better and fuck him, like trying to give me support. And then it just made this weird situation where I was with him and I would get comments like, you're sneaking around with John, I saw his shoes in one of your videos, and I would just be like, I'm not sneaking, but damn, how do I introduce him now? Like, fast forward to January, February, my lease is like coming up. I'm like talking shit on my landlord. We're in the car, like in the parking lot of Pep Boys. And John looks at me and he's like, hey, like, I think when your lease expires, you should either move in with Kaylin, Kay, like my coworker, or you should move in with me. And, you know, I had not baited John, like not asked him if I could move in, never anything like that. He goes to Pittsburgh sometimes, so I would house sit because by now he had Olive. So John got Olive, the orange cat, while we weren't dating. He's also a stray cat from this neighborhood like our other cats. And in around like November, I had found PB. So I had found PB in a abandoned lot, and when I would come to see John, I would feed her and then like get on the bus home. And I was doing that for a while, and I would show her to John, and then one day John went and captured her. So if you're ever like, who are all these cats? They accumulated during our breakup. But I couldn't take PB into my apartment. my apartment was really small. So John took her. So I do feel like PP is still like our cat together, and I really do love Olive, so my step cat. So I accepted John's offer to move in, but I still felt like there was a ton of stuff we hadn't worked through. So that back bedroom was actually supposed to be mine to just like live in, with the intention of us getting back together, but no pressure. And I have to say, like, out loud, like, I'm always just working for what I believe is the right thing. And like, hindsight obviously is 2020. Like, you can always look back and be like, that probably wasn't a good idea. But I'm always going to be pushing forward. And I don't believe it was a very fucked up idea. And John and I officially got back together a little bit after that. We've been dating ever since. So we've been back together almost a year now. And I haven't been very public about it. Obviously, I'm doing room tours and I'm talking about my boyfriend and everything like that, but I have never come out and said that I'm dating John again. And it is just because, one, like, we have had a lot of growing. A lot of growing. A lot of conversations, arguments, like, deep soul searching, trying to figure things out. And I just don't want to expose that, and I didn't want to expose that to everybody and bust that wide open and, you know, do anything that could trivialize our growth, but also take any outside feedback. Despite me receiving it, and despite people being like, I got this long message once that was like, the same exact thing happened to me. I broke up with my boyfriend and my friend died, and then my boyfriend and I got back together, and then a year later we broke up again. And I was like, holy shit. Like, that's a lot. And I'm not trying to, obviously, like, criticize the person who left that comment. I'm just, like I said, like, reading those comments and being exposed to them, like, they enter your mind, and then you're like, well, what was my authentic thought? Like, what's my organic idea? Now I have this other person's idea. So we've been, like, working through a lot, and if you do watch my live streams, you know, in April, we got into this argument about like my social media presence and like online feminism and how a lot of stuff has kind of skewed my perspective. And I think that that's true. Like, when I was single, I was online, like, reading how to cope, and I was taking in a lot of advice that wasn't like given by somebody who was a professional, just like listening to anyone who would talk. And I did take in a lot of toxic and bad advice and bad relationship advice and bad self-care advice and bad mental health advice. And I think that trying to be the perfect person really took me down a path that was not me trying to be myself. So all of this comes back to, I want to be my authentic self on my YouTube channel again. And I don't want to have all these secrets. And I want to tell you I'm dating John. And I want to tell you about Olive. And I want to tell you about my life. And I want to move forward. And yeah, I worry that maybe in 2 years, John and I will figure out it wasn't right. But it doesn't mean that it's not working right now. It doesn't mean that I'm not happy to see him. And it doesn't mean that I'm not fulfilled when we're together. And it doesn't mean that I don't feel like we're taking a step in the right direction every time we have a hard conversation. Every time we talk, I understand more about him. And we also both strive to be better. We both strive to talk about our feelings. And we do think about, like, where that'll go. Obviously, depression is really, really scary. And when you put trauma on top of that, it's a whole fucking crazy thing. I look back on last October and the months after, and I feel like a ghost. I feel like a transparent person. Just like floating around the city, talking to my friends, trying to act like nothing happened, but at the same time honor Ryan. And it took a lot. It stole my personality and my sense of worth and my sense of safety. And I really lost who I was. And I was really worried that whatever was left of me would be chewed up and spit out by, like, my comment section, or like people unsubscribing or thumbs down. And when you're so open and exposed, like, that shit just hurts 10 times more. Like, going out in a hailstorm fucking naked. Okay, obviously my camera died because I've been talking for 45 minutes. But I think I was talking about how just, like, I had been concealing the truth. And it doesn't feel like a lie, but it does feel inauthentic because YouTube has always been the place where I came to be myself. And, like, unapologetically myself, and share my stories and share everything that makes me me. And if working through my relationship, you know, is harsh, like, it was just hard, and I just wanted to conceal it because I didn't really want the feedback. In the last year, you know, I've given only like a soft representation of myself, only putting out videos that I feel confident in and that I know, like, are good and aren't controversial, don't create static, like, anything like that. And that's just because I felt like the hate on my channel was just too much for me to bear, and it was getting really severe. And you know, sometimes I don't think it's misguided. I've gotten really, really great criticism from you guys. Always good criticism strikes me well. But, you know, there was a comment that I got last year that, like, completely destroyed me. And it's because of that I'm not using Tumblr anymore. And I don't think I'll go back to it. I think that just like anybody, I've just grown past it. And when it was a good thing in my life, it was good. And now I'm moving on. Now I just want to continue on here on a better note. And I want to be honest and forthright. And I want to come to you and share the things in my life. Like, I was scared to vlog because you would see John, or you would see that I was here, and I had never addressed that fact. But it does get scary because, like, John and I are imperfect. I'm imperfect. You know, in the beginning, I was really scared to put that out there because what if it didn't work? And our relationship not working somehow equates to failure online, and that's really scary. But John and I are growing, and, like, some people break up and figure themselves out and figure out what they want, and they come back to the relationship better. And we were in a situation where we couldn't really take a break because I was living at his parents' house and, well, moved out. And I think there was a lot of social pressure for us to be like, well, that means we're broken up. And even John and I watched a stand-up comedian, like, a few weeks ago who was like, you know, if your relationship isn't working out, break up because there's a billion people on Earth. And I felt really uncomfortable watching that with John and was, like, looking over, and he paused it and he was like, he's not talking about us. And that's something I have to work on, you know? I'm very easily influenced. And obviously it is a symptom or a side effect of social media, because growing up, I didn't give a fuck and no one could tell me. And being ugly was fun, and just staying out all late and doing my own thing and following, like, my own inner monologue was a lot easier than it is now. But I don't want to be with anyone else. I want to be with John, and I really do love him, and I'm really, really proud of our growth, and I'm proud of us and how far we've come. And I have to stop idealizing our relationship and picking out things that aren't perfect instead of focusing on, like, how much John is really my best friend and the adventures we go on and the support that he offers me. And, you know, he's working on his own things, and I feel a lot more comfortable being like I need a little more affection right now and stuff like that, and asking for the things that I need instead of just, like, staring at him and being like, tell me my hair is good. Like, it's just a little crazy, and I know that those ideals were like, inserted into my mind, and they're not organic. So a lot of that is, like, you know, unplugging and getting off social media and, like, remembering, in 2013, how John and I met and like why we fell in love. And like, obviously we have to adjust with the times and we don't get to live in our bubble forever, but doing that on the world stage obviously is hard. I hope you understand why in the last year all this has been kind of a delicate, weird limbo, and I felt like, I wasn't being very forthright with my personal life, and a lot of things got left unexplained, and I never backtracked and explained them. I just kept trying to power forward, thinking that was the right thing. Obviously it was not. I know this is like maybe not a really great like my truth video, but that is my truth. All along, I just wanted to protect my heart. I have a wide variety of viewers who all have a very different and unique background, and all of us come from different places and have different perspectives. And I have a unique perspective just like you have one. And I've been working through my life for a long time. At 18, I was on my own. And I don't think I necessarily do a very bad job with the decisions that I make for myself. I think long and hard and emotionally, and I'm very sentimental, and all of my actions are always very hesitant and thought out, and all of them kind of revolve around self-doubt. I'm the first person to hesitate on my decisions, and I definitely want to work on that. In that though, I have confidence in my decisions, and I'm a big girl, and I know that everything how it is right now is the best. I can't believe I live in the home that we built together, and it was never that, like I said, that was never like a guiding thing. Like, I never felt entitled to this home. And John and I started working on things very quickly after our breakup. That time spent apart is not a stain on our relationship, because there are a lot of times when I can reference that time period in my discussions with John or my friends or my own reflections on myself. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate everything, and it was hard, but I'm 10 steps away from that right now, and I love sharing that with you guys. I do want to improve my life. I do want to work on a schedule. I do want my channel to get back and going. I think that it went stale and it went dry, and that's awful. And before blaming myself, I blamed everything else. I blamed the AdSense, I blamed the algorithm, but the biggest problem was that I was not being authentic with you guys. I was being disingenuous. I was trying to be something that would excite you and make you stay tuned despite the elephant in the room, and it's just not fair. And I really can't stand by it. It feels really inauthentic. And I wanted to share that with you guys so we can move on together and grow. And if it's, if you're new here, then it's a good starting off point. Relationships and everything can be really hard, and I don't think you have to throw the whole man away. Like, I feel like one thing that is hard, that is every opinion kind of put on Twitter is always so severely countered, and so much so I think it is a catalyst for a lot of my self-doubt. And I saw a post the other day that was like, relationships take work, and like something along those lines, like relationships take a lot of work. It's not always about breaking up. Sometimes it's about fixing the problem, something like that. And the very first reply was like, yeah, but sometimes relationships are toxic and you gotta move on. And it's like, yes, but that wasn't the original idea. The original idea is that relationships take work, and that they're not like as hyper disposable as that you can like, as if they might be projected. And both opinions are right, but they are separate opinions, and when they're combined, I feel like they create this like cloudiness. And I mean, that's Twitter anyway, but you can understand where like a lot of those feelings come from. And some of my best days are the ones where I like forget my phone at home, believe me. But having a lifeline to you guys is very important. I want to remember why I created a YouTube channel and remember why I loved it and bring that content back to you and bring back series. And now that I have more experience with editing and being on the platform and the different tools I learned at YouTube school, like, I want to bring those to you guys in a very authentic way. Am I scared of like John and I breaking up in a few years or something tragic happening? No, because thinking that way is really severe and it can be really toxic. And self-doubt is one of my biggest problems I have to work on, even at work, in my decision making, in my hair cutting, in my personal life. Like, I doubt myself so much that this has been really relieving to just talk about this and to put it out there and for you to receive it however you want. You know, if there's anything I left out, I'm sorry. I know in the past year there was controversies about the video that Rachel and I made together, and I did put a statement on Twitter about that, and the video is taken down so it can't upset anybody, and for that I apologize greatly. We explored a topic that was still raw and we put it out to like an audience who may be sensitive about it, and I do think that conversations like that should be left up to professionals or have a professional in the room, and I feel that way now. So that was a learning experience for me as well. And as far as my P.O. box goes, my P.O. box is public. You can find the information for that on my Twitter. I do believe in the community tab I'm going to be posting something about maybe having like a big unboxing video. With my P.O. box, I do get very personal letters sometimes. I think that's just the nature of my content. So I never publicly shared a lot of the things from my P.O. box because sometimes they are private in nature. If you want to send something to my P.O. box and you want to keep it private, a lot of people have suggested that maybe you say something like that on there so I can share things in my P.O. box. If you feel like you sent me something and I ignored it, I am very sorry. I would never blatantly ignore something that I received. I hope you know that it was that sometimes people do send me private things that made me feel like the entirety of the things I receive are private, so I did treat them in a way where I interacted with them in a private setting. I'm really sorry if I wasn't public about that in the beginning. It was kind of the tone of the things I received that set the tone for the entirety of the things. I will be renewing my P.O. box for another year, so I will be posting something about that in my community tab in the next couple weeks. I was thinking of maybe having like a contest or something, or just like a big public like announcement to have like maybe like a centered thing around that, because I know that some people were having feelings about my P.O. box, and I just want to say that yes, some of the items I received were personal and sensitive, so I just kept the entirety of them sensitive and personal, or treated them in that way. And I do want to thank everybody who's ever sent me a postcard, a letter, a care package. It means the most to me, and believe me, like, it was and still is my direct lifeline to you guys. And I posted a video a couple months ago that was like, I really wanted to give up. And then I went to my P.O. box and I remembered why I make these videos, and that's still true. PB, what other, I don't think there's many controversies on my YouTube channel, so I do just want to be public and let you know that like my intentions are never, ever, ever evil. I would never scam you guys. I would never, like, when I put out my pins a few years ago, yeah, that was just someone who had never sold things online in a like professional way, trying to sell things online. I recently put out Bronco pins for everybody, and this time around I didn't get any feedback that no one received their pin, so obviously small batches are what I'm good at. So if I release merch in the future, it'll either be through a third-party company who can help me package and send and things like that, or small batches that I can handle myself. And I just want to move forward, and I want to keep going with my YouTube channel, make you guys proud and entertained and excited, and I really want to scrub this channel of like the depressing and like mentally unstable and like quiet kind of sense that it had, because it's not how I feel in my everyday. And when I look at myself in the viewfinder and remember how sad and depressed and lonely and just insecure I used to feel, I want to step away from that, because it doesn't define me, and I don't want to like wear that mask anymore. I want to evolve and move on and make you guys happy and be a place where you can go where my shit isn't like weight on your shoulders, because I don't feel that way anymore. Okay, my memory card is beeping, my battery is beeping. I have been at this for an hour, but I really couldn't stop because I want to be honest with you guys. I love you guys so much. When I post this video, I'm going to try to be active in the comments, in the community tab, and you can always contact me on my Instagram, which again, I'm trying to take like 50 steps away from like being sad and depressed on my Instagram story and make it a fulfilling place that better represents me and not like a hashtag like sad girl persona that like wasn't inauthentic but isn't something I want to visit every day. You know what I mean? So I'm really just trying to put like my best foot forward. So you can always talk to me on Instagram. It's a smaller platform, so you know, I see most of the stuff that goes on there. You can always comment and subscribe, and I really want this to be a fulfilling community again, and I'm eager for it, and I'm excited. And Halloween content after this, please. I love you guys so much. I never ever wanted anyone to feel like this was a bad place. All I want to say is, like, I'm just like you, and I go through trials and errors, and I go through lows and periods of confusion and uncertainty, but we pull out and we get over it and we learn from it and we move forward, and you're allowed to be happy again. You don't owe it to your mentality to stay sad in order to honor a tragedy. You have to move forward and get better. And you have to get better by trying. And sometimes you have to try really hard. Sometimes you have to take 2 steps back. But you have to try every day to get better. And yeah, it's October, so it's a year later. And sometimes it takes a whole year. Sometimes it takes a whole lifetime. But thank you guys so much for working this out with me and standing by my side if you're still here from years ago, or if you're brand new. Hi! I'm stable, I swear. Alright, I love you guys. Bye.